I wanted him to be a dark fairy tale in shoulder pads. Instead, I got the cinematic equivalent of chronic brain damage. But on paper, the premise is electric. Him is a football horror movie, a mashup I was immediately on board for when I saw the first trailer. Because American football is fertile ground for the exploration of horror themes. Like, think about it, the bone-grinding brutality of the game itself, the constant churn of broken bodies out and fresh bodies in. And not to mention the quasi-religious pageantry of the experience of the football itself that treats quarterbacks like gods and games like some weird Midwest megachurch service. The film does lean into this, but instead of finding its balance, it just falls over. We follow Cam Cade, who's a gifted young QB prospect on the eve of the NFL Combine. The Combine is the NFL's meat market where prospects can show their stuff for prospective teams. But before he can show off his cannon of an arm, a deranged fan bops him over the head and gives him a traumatic brain injury. Enter Isaiah White, Cam's idol and a legendary QB, who invites him to an isolated desert compound to train him himself. And there, Cam can prove he has what it takes. I would say that this is where the movie went off the rails, but it was never on the rails to begin with. There's a lot I didn't like about this movie, first being the acting. Tyreek Withers, who plays Cam, has the screen presence of an Easter Island statue. Julia Fox plays Julia Fox. Marlon Wayans, meanwhile, whiplashes between merriment and menace, his manic swings exhausting rather than unsettling. Combined with the film's hyperactive editing, the whole experience felt like sandpaper gritting against a sunburn. The film desperately wants to interrogate the mythology of quarterbacks. These players aren't just athletes. They're CEOs, messiahs, and rock stars all rolled up into the perfect physical package. They carry the weight of entire franchises, canonized for every victory and crucified for every loss. Him literalizes this by creating an actual football cult, which again, I really like the idea of. Wayans as the unhinged football high priest, Withers as the doe-eyed acolyte, and both spiraling into madness in their quest for supremacy over the other. In real life, quarterbacks are mythical oddballs. Tom Brady swore by a quack doctor and a neurotic aversion to strawberries. Aaron Rodgers disappears into darkness retreats and waxes poetic about psychedelics. The position practically begs for a folkloric fairy tale treatment. If him had brought even a fraction of nuance to these larger-than-life personalities, it might have landed a compelling story about power, ritual, and madness. Because this idea of football, horror, and cults has teeth, but him gums it to death. Him does its best to tackle modern-day professional football controversies. The film takes a very dim view of the ownership-player dynamic. Him leans into gladiatorial imagery, the players as disposable property, the owners as emperors in skyboxes. The pageantry of the Colosseum is there in rituals, and the finale clearly wants to echo Spartacus, with Cam's blood-soaked rebellion against entrenched power. On paper, it should all feel cathartic and empowering, a howl of rage against the system. In practice, it's trite, predictable, and as manufactured as the very spectacle it's pretending to critique. And by the time him lurches towards this bloody climax, the only thing it's proven is that horror and football, two subjects overflowing with brutality and myth-making, deserve a better film than this one. Him simply is not. Football is already haunted by brain injuries. It's a controversy that we've all essentially moved on from, and yet it remains a horrific reminder of the dangers of the sport. Some of the most disturbing images in football come in the aftermath of these big hits, when a player collapses on the field and their body locks into the infamous fencing position, a chilling involuntary seizure of the limbs that's become tragically synonymous with the game. Him wields this imagery with all the subtlety of a halftime show's pyrotechnics. What could have been a pointed critique of the NFL's history of mishandling players' neurological health is reduced instead to an exploitative spectacle, robbed of any editorial clarity or moral through line. I did like something about him. Despite the cardboard characters, stilted dialogue, nausea-inducing edits, I have to admit that him often looks gorgeous. Subjects are framed with precision, the desert compound rendered in wide, stark compositions that feel both epic and isolating. The camera lingers just long enough to suggest the occult rot under the surface of the compound, which itself is a strange marriage of health spa, training facility, and demonic chapel. It's in these moments that the film hints at the surreal, unsettling fairy tale it could have been, before being throttled back by the wooden performances and schizophrenic editing. All in all, I am very disappointed with him. I wanted to enjoy this movie, I wanted to like it, I want there to be more football horror in this space, but him fumbled the ball. It's a confusing, oftentimes infuriating mess. And I wouldn't pay stadium prices to see it in theaters, wait for it to hit streaming. If this review saved you the cost of a movie ticket, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more horrible takes as we begin to creep deeper into spooky season. I'm Goblinsburg. I'll see you in the next one, and go Bills.